Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 373 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada, recording November 28th, 2022. Today should be book club, but we have a special episode of Angry at the Government because of recent announcements.
Yes. We need your help to support the Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP. Become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Show you're not a communist. Buy a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
And now our favorite segment of the show. What are we drinking? As is tradition, we will start with Liz. Liz, what are you drinking, and what's one thing that you've done off of the Patriot Challenge list?
I'm drinking tea with whiskey. And one thing that I've completed off the Patriot list is the exercise thing. That was definitely today.
Got your steps in today?
There's a lot of steps.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You also probably practice a good skill if everyone made it back alive without you strangling anybody.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for
That's another
sure.
skill. That's another skill, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah. No, and it wasn't, honestly, Toronto wasn't as bad today as I thought it would be because for some reason it's relatively dead on Mondays.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And we took the train in, so we didn't even drive.
Oh, even better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, much better. Pierre, what are you drinking?
Whiskey in this cup, and then when this cup runs out, I have another cup of whiskey.
Okay. And what off the Patriot Challenge did you do?
Oh, practicing some skills. I had to do a few extra things this week with work. Well, last week, coming into this week as well, with work that are a little outside of my forte, but need to be done because the person assigned to do it can't figure it out.
No.
So that becomes now my responsibility. I'm practicing a skill again, picking up the lock picking. Kind of got the hang of it again, and then left it alone for a little bit. So starting that back up because it's cold, and as you will find out later, government is gay. So I figure I should keep that skill as recent as possible.
Yes, it could come in handy for reasons.
For reasons. Yeah.
What about you, Gavin?
I guess I'm still on the water train, and I spoke to my doctor today, and yeah, he confirmed that I'll be on the water train until March. So, yay! But yeah, I guess
March.
Yeah, six months dry, or I mean, mostly I had a cheat drink every now and again. I had one that, when all of this nonsense got announced, because I needed one very much badly, but
very much badly.
Yeah,
must have needed. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess for Patriot Challenge, aside from drinking my water, which is all I really can drink, and my reading, which I've been crushing, I've only got like one book to go to meet my goal for the year. Doing my exercise, got to get my my ruck challenge in for this week, but got the other one in for the thing. So yeah, just trying to get a little bit harder to kill and a little bit smarter every day, just a little.
Also, you should be glad you don't live on a reserve because you have easy access to water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still filter it because I don't trust them to not put things in the water.
Yeah, but
smart.
Yeah, I concur. We had the same setup.
Goodness. It's ridiculous. Okay, so we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. A version of the show is available on Stitcher and at iTunes. And the Patriot Challenge template you can find it on the website. So if anybody's wondering about that.
Awesome. Just to respond to some of the comments in the chat,
Yeah.
I have no idea about the fact check thing. I'm not surprised that it happened, but I didn't realize that political commentary could be fact checked.
I mean, I guess it's kind of an interesting sign because does that mean that we hit somebody's radar for reals?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can take from this is that somehow we found our ways into the ears of the right people, the wrong people.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I guess they're starting to take note of our drunken ramblings, which again, everything we say on the show is for entertainment purposes and not ever to be considered legal advice, especially when we get into today's topic.
At least for now.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm surprised that we've been fact checked when all we do is read current news articles and then give our opinion on it, not fact, opinion.
Well, and the other side too is that most of the articles that we're, commenting on are not alternative media. They are
very much so mainstream media.
Yeah. So
Huh.
whatever.
Weird. Maybe Elon just needs to buy YouTube next.
Yeah.
Then we'll be good to go.
I don't know anything about seeing YouTube. Oh, Dave's got this handled in the chat.
Yeah.
No.
Well, there you go. But yeah, I guess today's topic is we were going to be doing book club, but I guess on Tuesday, they kind of announced some nonsense. So everyone knew that C-21, the handgun ban, and the buyback bill was going through. Although I don't see anything in it about the buyback, so I guess that's not happening anymore. Nor is there anything about grandfathering, which the OIC mentioned. And then they snuck in some other interesting stuff, or enraging stuff is maybe a better way to put it. I guess everyone was thinking there would be something to do with magazines, and I mean they were right, but they were also wrong. So it wasn't just the magazines that have now been banned. It is the gun that the magazines go into. So pretty much every single magazine or detachable magazine, semi-automatic rifle, a bunch of shotguns, including some 22s and some single shot manual action hunting rifles have also been included in the list of things that have recently been banned or will be if C-21 continues on through the nonsense, which I guess it's got a third reading, the Senate, I guess a vote, and then Royal Ascension, and then that's law. So I mean a little ways to go at least, but not that long in general.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. But I don't know, Chris. I don't know why the 1022 is not there. It seems kind of arbitrary how a lot of the 22s ended up on there or not on there. I would have thought for sure that would have been there with the magazine controversy that they have, but
what 22s made it on there? Because last I saw this was amended for semi-auto center rifle or center fire.
It's semi-auto center fired rifles with a detachable magazine that is capable of holding more than 5 rounds is how this is being pitched, except in practice there's like a bunch of other stuff on there. So the like the GSG 15, the GSG 16, it doesn't say anything about like rimfire exempt from what I have seen. So I'm assuming
there was something to do with that, wasn't there?
Yeah, because as it stands right now, it's center fire only.
Yeah, but that's the way they've pitched it. But if you go through the like ridiculous list, which includes all of the things that they are naming by name and all variants of, if you look, it says GSG 15, GSG 16. I have not seen anything that says that there is an exemption for those. So because they do not list models, right? Like not GSG 9 mil, right? It's GSG 15, no caliber. So that means it's anything and everything that is a GSG 15, everything and everything that's a GSG 16. And there's a few other 22s that are caught up in this.
So I know a lot of people that have SKSs too. It looks like that's on the docket.
Yeah,
The chopping block.
all versions of the SKS, so not just like the D models that have the removable magazine, even the ones that have the built-in magazine. Those are on there because they can all be modified to accept magazines.
That's insane.
Taxpayer Dave is saying that the ISSC MK22 is also on the list. So I guess all of the ones that look like scary black guns, even though they're 22s, are on the list, it seems.
I'd be interested to know how they're coming up with this list. Like, who is compiling this list?
Well, and so one of the other crazy things about this list is a bunch of stuff on there that has already been prohibited for forever. So like there was something like 10 pages of AKs, which have already been prohibited in this country for quite some time. And all of the stuff, and this is the part that's really, really annoying here. All of the guns that were listed in the OIC are listed in this bill now as prohibited. So currently there is a court challenge going on right now about the Order in Council. So even if we win that challenge, it's all for nothing, because if this bill passes, which it likely will, and it will likely pass and get royal assent prior to the court case for the OIC, that all becomes law. So great, even if it goes to trial after that and we win, great. The court finds that the government could not ban these firearms by Order in Council. Oh, but wait, they have been banned legally by a bill passing through the House of Commons and the Senate.
Oh, good
and
news.
Because there's
I
nothing,
don't have any illegal ones.
There's nothing mentioned in there about the buyback for any of this stuff. So none of the rifles, shotguns, pistols, any of that stuff. There's no buyback. So congratulations, it's delayed confiscation without a single penny coming back to you or your family upon your passing for any of the things that are listed. So no, and we don't even know at this point if we even could get to use the items that have been added to this list. I assume not.
It's like, are they? So technically, until C21 passes, you can use them.
Yeah.
So if anything that is mentioned in the OIC, no. But if you happen to have a GSG 15, right now, legally, yeah, you can buy them, you can sell them, you can go out and use them, because this has not become law yet. So you can continue to use them and do whatever you're legally allowed to do with them. But the moment that gets royal assent, those things become prohibited.
It's ridiculous.
Including,
so we should go like,
yeah,
we should have like a communal boating trip soon.
Yes, very, very soon. If you look, I mean, Cabela's has started to blow out some of this stuff. And I mean, on the, Gun Post and CGN, people are dumping these guns left, right, and center. They're starting to.
Yeah, I was actually looking for potentially alleged magazines today, and yeah, I couldn't find any.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, we're doing all this and everything. And I was like, well, Black Friday's still going on.
Yeah,
so I
so
guess I missed the boat on it, but
yeah, so people that don't want to get caught with these things and not get their money are trying to get whatever they can get for them right now. And other people are snatching them up like crazy.
I don't see why you would want to. but I support it.
So yeah, but yeah, the whole thing is absolutely insane, and like, that all of this, like they pitched, oh well, we're going to take their military style assault rifles away from them, but don't worry, folks, don't worry, we are going to compensate them for that because they have legally purchased these things.
Yeah.
And then 2.5 years later, we're going to just sneak this in under the wire here.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they're putting this bill forward because, yeah, well,
They-
also
they-
a big
they-
reason they're putting this forward is because they probably understand that, the current CCFR court case with a few other people or whatever for the OIC being, not within law and like, hey, you kind of overstepped here. It wouldn't surprise me if they have that.
I don't doubt that. Yeah, that this was part of their plan from the get-go when they originally introduced this bill. That like we're gonna wait till it kind of goes there, and then kind of right at the last chance that we get, we're gonna introduce this amendment to take away a bunch of this other stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's just going to be, I think it's going to have an even greater polarizing effect though, than maybe what this government really realizes, because you've already got Alberta and Saskatchewan sitting on the fence about even, collectively participating in the federal, theater. And now you've got probably I don't know about the prairies too much, but definitely Alberta, and so maybe Saskatchewan also, probably some of the more likely to have firearms folks, and now you're putting this in, like they're just gonna put their foot down. It's just gonna push them more and more towards, like autonomy.
Yeah, so, but until they decide to go autonomy, so, those provinces deciding that they weren't going to use provincial funds to do anything with the OIC buyback program is going to be completely different than if this actually passes in law.
Right. Well, and I think, so here's where I think the dance is going to come in, because what they were talking about more is that because those provinces use the federal police force, they subcontract the federal police force. I think they were drawing a line in the sand saying, the RCMP that are in our provinces are not allowed to do federal bidding on this topic specifically because they're contracted to police provincially for us.
Yeah, they would not put provincial dollars towards that. So if the federal government wanted to use them to be the
OIC
long arm of the law, if you will.
Yeah, they couldn't do it through the provincially contracted RCMP.
They would have to foot the bill for it themselves, which, I mean, really is effectively the province is not doing anything really, but it is a symbolic gesture at the very least. Yeah, because the government will just print more money and tell them to go and,
But if you look at some of the, go ahead.
But that was also under the OIC and not mandatory buyback program or whatever, and which was not law in comparison to if C-21 goes through. The province would have no leg to stand on saying we're not using.
And there's no buyback. I mean, it's just law at this point. I mean, they could say we're not using the RCMP to do this, and we're going to get our own police force, and then somehow convince the police force to ignore federal law, which I don't think is likely. But I mean, this is just
I don't think they would not enforce it, but
I don't know. I think that there's a lot of resistance coming out. You hear the new premier of Alberta talk a pretty heavy hand, and I mean, it's very exciting if she actually follows through with a lot of the political talk that she's got going on, because I mean, I'm of the generation that I haven't experienced as much. I was too young to, no, well, not really any of that. Well, in its real sense, but I don't know. I wasn't really aware of much when Quebec went through its kind of like separatist big explosion of, making moves. But I think now more than ever, I can kind of appreciate how it's Alberta's not at all like Quebec in that way, because it's not trying to separate and become its own country. It's just trying to reclaim autonomy. And if Danielle Smith, that's her name, Smith?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, if she can actually pull it off, I think it's going to show a lot of provinces that they are not under as much control as the federal government leads them to believe.
Yeah. But I mean, even if they are to separate entirely, Alberta, of all places, with that oil money,
Mhm.
and
What's
you know,
Quebec going to do then?
well, but like that's so like the Quebec thing wanting to separate was like, hey, like we want to like peace out and do our own thing, but whoa, you want us to pay back debt?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we also
So-
want to use your currency.
Yeah.
We don't want to pay
Whereas,
anything
yeah,
extra
like-
to go cross border and all that stuff. We just want to be in charge of ourselves. Where I think we're
Alberta has the bank account to be able to just be like,
Oh yeah.
Well, but the problem is that you've got, the folks to the south of Alberta that stopped the pipelines. And then you've got the federal government on the Canadian side, chokeholding Alberta a little bit on the pipelines. So until they find a workaround for that, their economy isn't
no, it's not
personally
what it,
independent enough. But
So
But
I
of all
think
the
if anybody's
provinces-
going to go, though, exactly. I think of all the provinces, though, they are 100%, equipped to do it and lead the charge. And I think a bunch of other provinces, especially, like Saskatchewan, maybe even Manitoba, I think you'd see them fall in line behind that.
but it
Yeah.
also, I don't think it would take long for them to become financially independent real
You're right.
fast, because
well, if
like,
they get
if
yeah.
Alberta doesn't want to put all that propane on
Yeah.
the train and send it to Quebec, and they say, hey, you know what? We'll make our own little deficit for like, a year, and like we'll just make our own money, print or go burr. They could sell any natural gas, any resources they have that supplies what 90% of
Yeah.
this country at whatever price they wanted, whether it was fair or not. And then at that point, how many years is it going to take to get a pipeline from the US up to Canada to substitute, Alberta
exactly.
standing
I
their
mean,
ground?
and,
So,
and
like,
with all
they've
the
got- they've got all
pipeline
the hands.
nonsense,
Yeah. They've
Yeah.
got
Like-
everything in their hand to be able to do this. They just, let's say they separate it today, like give it till February, and the
Yeah.
government is begging on their knees for them to do
Well,
anything and is willing
Yeah.
to pay anything.
I mean, and all they really have to do, because like with a section of the country that now they could build pipelines on, they could just start building them and put them to the border and then go, if you want to buy from us, here's the hookup. Like, take it or leave it. Like,
They could, like, out of
Yeah.
all provinces, like that
yeah.
is
And I
the
imagine
one
like,
province that could
yeah,
really
yeah,
really
they
figure
could
it out.
actually have the financial means to actually do this.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be exciting to see if they do, because I mean, the Premier talks a really good game.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
And I think it's just reflective of, again, it kind of goes back to that idea of division. We've kind of been dancing around a lot of topics over the last year in terms of just autonomy and, a certain element of sovereignty and, personal respect and all the things, right? And I don't know how, I mean, I have some thoughts, but I don't know how the government has just continued to be able to steamroll over so many people. And I think where they're misjudging is that, folks like Danielle Smith, she stands up. She's going to take a lot of people to her side and to her thought process, because
Yeah.
there's lots of folks that, I couldn't believe it when there was those photos going around of people already back on the overpasses with Canadian flags and stuff like that. Like that's,
It gave me a little chub. I agree.
it was great. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, it was
amazing.
good. But
But yeah, it's going to become
Yeah.
a bit of a thing. I'm interested to know how this buyback's going to turn out, because
there is no buyback anymore, if I was to guess.
Yeah.
well, that I'm
that-
going to
that- it's yeah, but
Buyback?
it's no, there's
Yeah.
because they're
This-
changing this into law.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't
there's
think there's
nothing
going to
anymore.
be. Yeah, there's
Nothing.
they don't have to make it into a buyback.
But-
They don't have to
No,
do anything.
they
So
don't.
that
Yeah,
$3,000
There is no
done.
obligation them for do that, and even
No.
in the cost analysis that they've done includes just the stuff in the OIC. Doesn't include any of the new things. Like, this is a shit ton of rifles. Like, every single semi-auto rifle basically in the country, and then like shotguns too, right? So the
Yeah.
Benelli M4 and all of its variants, the Super Black Eagle, the Black Eagle, and all of those things are also all prohibited. Single shot hunting rifles in larger calibers that are capable of being rebarreled into things over 10,000 joules, also prohibited, even if the item
Because it
itself,
haven't
as it sits right now, does not break any of the rules. It has the potential to break rules.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
but
so even if we were to create new 5-round body sized magazines that go into the semi-auto rifles, which in the theory, according to this law, would be legal, the fact that a magazine that holds 6 rounds or more even exists means that it has the potential to break laws and therefore is banned.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and at that point, I don't see the gun markets accommodating
Well, and other
as much
stuff.
as
So
they have for everything,
yeah.
right? Like,
Well,
I
think
mean,
th-
there's a whole market on pistols. Like 90% of pistols you can buy everywhere else have a barrel shorter than 4 inches.
Yeah.
Right. But they're like, fine, we'll give you 4.1 inches so they could
Yeah.
accommodate to the Canadian market. But for them to rebrand a pistol and make a
Yeah.
whole new magazine, right? So at that
No.
point, they'd have to
Yeah, but you
change the
can't
whole
buy-
mechanics of it. No,
You
but
Yeah,
can't
they'd
but
have to
make
the-
change the whole
pistols
mechanics.
anymore though, so
But you mean,
No.
so you could say if you were to design a brand new semi-automatic rifle inside this country.
Yeah.
You would
It would be
have to
20
do
feet
it.
long.
Well, you would have to meet all of the criteria that currently exist for a non-restricted semi-auto rifle.
Yep.
And if you wanted to make it magazine fed, as opposed to some other bizarre way of feeding things into a semi-auto rifle, you would have to make
Oh.
sure that it has a proprietary magazine design, and you never make a magazine that holds more than 5 rounds. But the minute that somebody somewhere creates a magazine for it that holds 6 rounds or more, it now all of a sudden becomes prohibited.
Right. And I mean, like, well, to say like the other way of having a weird magazine fed or whatever, look at the SKS. If you don't have the detachable magazine, you push
Well,
push
but
around.
that's
from the top,
because
right?
so if you have the stripper
Standard.
clip fed internal
Yeah.
magazine that hinges open, that plate can be removed, and then those weird duckbill magazines can be installed with very little work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But
but
there's
that's
a
so the
market
way they've
for it.
worded it is anything that is detachable magazine or can accept a detachable magazine
Yeah.
becomes prohibited. So you would have to basically make something that is an internal magazine that can't be modified in any way and that will
Yeah.
only ever hold 5 rounds. But even then, like shotguns and some other stuff that don't have magazines at all, like the M1 Garand is also on the list. M1 Garand does not use magazines. It uses end block clips that up until now have avoided a lot of nonsense because of that. Like, doesn't have a magazine, so there is no law that says it
Okay.
has to be pinned to 5 rounds. It's a clip. But now, prohibited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm like, aren't those bolt? I was like, no, never mind, they're not.
Yeah.
No, those are semi-auto. So like that's that weird thing. So is there any magazine restriction on a bolt action now? Because I know there was
So-
a big chat about that coming down the pipeline.
So, as of right now, there is no restriction on the magazine capacity for a manual action firearm. But
So
if your magazine is also capable of being used in a semi-auto rifle, so I have allegedly a bolt action rifle that takes AR pattern magazines.
I feel you.
they would only be able to be 5-round magazines. If you have a proprietary design, you're fine.
Oh,
Well, I might be changing my 308 plans then.
what's
So
this?
if you have a 308 that uses AR-10 magazines, unfortunately, even with the laws coming out, you will not be able to unpin them to hold the full amount that goes in there, because that's not how that works. And technically, those magazines become a prohibited device because they can be used in a semi-auto rifle and are capable of holding more than 5 rounds. So there's a whole lot of nonsense involved here.
Yes. I think
Like-
it's going to be a pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I do have to say though that I'm kind of glad that there's some of these. I think it's the NFA and the CCFR. They're kind of stepping up and getting a little bit more vocal because
Yeah.
of this. And again,
CCFR has been since the OIC, in my opinion.
they have been. I have not been in the firearms world too long, really.
Me
And I'm
neither.
still not, I'm still kind of barely showing up. But I would say that, these Canadian version of lobbyist groups have kind of done a really shitty job of preventing this.
Yeah.
Like the point of, the dues that are paid is not to just join a social club. It is
Exactly.
to, prevent stuff like this from coming in and really being actionable and on the playing field. But, they don't even show up in the mainstream media as conversation pieces. Like the NFA and the CCFR, I again, like I'm pretty limited in my justification to criticize, but it seems like their pool of influence is really just the membership. Like, where are they petitioning for change? Where are they advocating for change outside of their membership?
Well, and so this is the biggest problem with a lot of those groups. So the only group that actually has a lobbyist, a full-time lobbyist, is the CCFR, and that's Tracy Wilson.
Yeah.
She's actually a registered lobbyist and works for the CCFR. The NFA did at one point, but not for several years, have a part-time lobbyist. So they paid a gentleman to lobby on their behalf occasionally. Although the last couple of years they have not had anyone, and then the last year or two of his employment, when it was sort of looked into, he didn't actually have any lobbying meetings on the books.
No.
Which, as a
Frank.
lobbyist, you are required to record all of your meetings that are like official meetings,
Sure.
because it's a legal thing. You can't be lobbying without being upfront about lobbying.
Yeah.
But he did make they as a group did make the comment that, their guy is working and he's busy talking to people. So it's like either you're full of shit or you're
Possible.
breaking the law.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Well,
I mean, sadly, you're very right. Like the CCFR at least has been doing something
yeah.
over the last several years. The NFA has done fuck all other than try to sue the CCFR at like the worst. Like that's never a good thing, but they did it at like the worst possible time. And then the CSSA for years has been coasting as well and not doing really anything, because they're more on the public side of things, they don't do a whole lot. On the business side of things, they do a little bit more. But I mean, they did just drop that lawsuit the other day, so hopefully that goes through. But again, like with the bill passing, it all kind of becomes pointless because it becomes law and it's passed through the proper legal process. But at least they are trying to do something and are putting those membership dollars to use for doing something, unlike the NFA that just seems to come up with new and stupider cartoons because that's all they seem to be able to do. At one point they were relevant.
Yeah.
Did accomplish things, but that was
well,
decades ago at this
well,
point.
usually at the formation of these organizations and,
Yeah.
you know, the building of their membership base, but it's kind of that old, you know, saying of good times make weak men make tough times make strong
Yeah.
men, you know, and so forth. And it's applicable across a lot of playing fields, including, you know, any kind of representative, I guess they would be probably considered like a charitable organization, maybe. I don't know.
They're not for profit.
Not for profit, yeah.
Yeah. So they
So-
don't get like actual charitable status. So you can't get
No,
a tax
but-
write-off for donating, but man,
Right,
that'd
but
be awesome
they
if you
don't
could.
have to, I know, wouldn't that be great? But
Yeah.
there's certain exemptions that they have and certain expectations that are
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah,
Um,
and they all fall, and that's why like there are certain people that have paid positions and there's certain people
Sure.
that do not, and things like that.
It
Yeah.
all kind of like, yeah. So the issue with that though is that you get to be pretty compliant, especially when you have an advanced, or when your membership, I guess, gets to a certain level. You know, you've got cash flow coming in, and maybe they just have gotten extremely comfortable with this idea of, oh, you know, we've got money coming in, we don't
need to do anything.
we don't need to work for it, right? And it's like, well, you know, personally, and again, my humble opinion, not really worth a whole lot, is that if we've gotten to this point, I would say all of those organizations, trash. Because if they have not been able to step up, and the fact that we haven't even heard them making a stink in mainstream media is like a big indicator to me.
I mean, at this point, some of them aren't even really rattling the saber, and if they are, they certainly aren't rattling it loud enough.
Yeah, to make any waves.
But also
Here,
to the
go.
defense, but also to their defense, right? Like mainstream media may not really say anything. Like,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
This
I mean,
won't make the 6 o'clock news on CBC,
No,
right?
and when the
CCFR wants to
CCFR did
protest
organize
anything.
the protest,
right? Like
they
yeah,
showed up
right?
early and were like, there's 100 people here, and then published the article before the thing even started. So,
Mhm.
So right,
Yeah.
so in the defense of all these
I mean, we're not,
institutions that are there for gun owners and this and that and everything. So okay, yeah, they're not in mainstream media. So a typical non-gun owner is not going to find any info on this. If you know, hey, let's watch the news, and it's like, hey, look, the government's banning everything,
but this is
and
the
everybody else is not doing anything.
yeah, but I mean,
so it's
you look-
really easy to get in front of a news crew. Really easy.
Yeah,
Like CBC
yes.
keeps on asking me to do interviews, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't trust you
part
guys.
of the problem though
depending
Yeah.
how that interview goes, they may
Right,
not
so
actually
that's-
use it.
But that's
And-
the point though, right? No, actually, that's not true. Because every
Yeah.
time I've spoken with CBC, it has been conditional that it's live, right? So it's
Yeah,
live
so
on radio.
one
So
of the
they
things I've
will
seen-
talk about stuff like that, and they will try to get, you know, sometimes they've tried to railroad me before, but that's why you have like a rep and a marketing thing. Like
Yeah.
They're
there
not
is
going to reach out to
people.
them.
Yeah, but
So
that's
this
the point, is
is-
that they're supposed to. You can pretty much go to any news outlet and say, hey, I've got a story for you. It's an op-ed. I've written it for you. Here you go. And a lot of the time, you know, news media, like they'll pick
Yeah.
it up because it's a different topic. But the issue is that we've got such a distrust of our government that, you know, and maybe this is their logic in defense of them as well. Maybe this is their logic, is that there's not enough people actually out there voting, that let alone to make aware of these issues to change them, right?
So
Because
I-
that's
I-
half the problem.
So I would even go against that you meet a reporter and say, hey, I've got a news story for you, and you give him everything. And then he has to bring it to his editor, or
so
saying as editor, right?
part
And
of the
it goes
problem
against
is on the firearm side of things, we have been in the past misrepresented by the media frequently. And so there's some hesitancy for somebody to get in front of the camera and do that even live. But also one of the other problems, and I've seen this when I've gone to certain events, and like the CCFR is pretty good at getting in front of cameras and getting on the radio and doing all of that. So Tracy and Rod have done a lot of press
Yeah,
conference, like
for sure.
actual government press
Yep.
conferences in Ottawa. They've been on the radio, they've been on TV and done all the things. But I have seen it when I have been to some of the live town hall events that like the media does catch wind of, and they go there, you know, they record things, but like they don't ever come and talk to the guy in the suit that's well spoken and uses
sure,
facts.
of course.
They find
Yep.
the crazy guy
Yep.
that's going to promote the thing. So like I've seen it, I've gone to these events, I've sat there, and I have been standing right next to Tracy and several other like higher up CCFR members or other well-respected people in the firearms community that are educated, well-spoken, and are there wearing suits
Sure.
or
yeah.
other fairly professional looking outfits.
Yeah.
They will
Not-
not talk to these people at all. They will go find the
Absolutely.
guy with like the crazy wild hair, the plaid shirt, the ripped jeans,
Yep.
the heavy metal t-shirt. I know I'm talking about Pierre, but I'm not.
I was like, come on, man. It's like,
You know, and
I
like,
didn't keep my gay man bun in tonight. I know it shows, but come on.
you know, and they'll find that guy and talk to that guy and then plaster his face all over
Absolutely.
there. And then the minute, like, and I've seen it happen to a friend of mine at one of the town halls where they are well spoken, but they got up to ask a question about, you know, here you are making all of these gun safety rules and everything else and like restricting law-abiding citizens that are vetted every single day. But what are you doing about like the constant stream of people coming across the border
Sure.
that you don't vet? Like,
Yep.
We offer them
and
water and carry their bags for them.
yeah, and ignore their child porn. And it was like
Yeah.
a totally legit question, but
Yeah.
like they cut and pasted it to make it sound like he's anti-immigration and all of the things. And you're like, but that's not.
I know it's not. And I guess
Yeah.
my thing is that I'm just extremely critical of these organizations because, you know,
Yeah.
and again, for only a few years now, I've been paying into this, and to see you're right. I have to say that I'm pretty, like, I know who the CCFR is. They're pretty
Yeah.
active. They do a lot of things, you know.
The other ones,
Yeah.
and I mean, if
Nothing.
anything, like Ducks Unlimited and OLFA have actually like they've been approached
Hampered.
with all of this stuff
Yeah.
and been like, hey, like, you know, like they're coming for us, which means that eventually they're coming for you, which has been proven last Tuesday when they announced hunting rifles and shotguns on the list.
Yeah.
And those
Yeah.
guys chose to not get involved and bury their head in the sand because they felt that like being vocal about this and being very vocal about it would alienate some of their members.
Yeah.
Right.
And-
And I mean, how many FUDs have you met? You know, people that hunt,
Too many.
you know, but stand by, you know, the fact that, like, you know, my bolt action 30-06 or
Yeah.
303
Oh, it'll
or
never get
whatever.
banned.
Yeah, you know,
Here we are.
they're just like, you know, like, what do you need an AR for? Right? They don't understand, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know,
sure.
I was one of those idiots that I was like, I don't want a handgun. I don't need anything restricted. I did my non-restricted course and my hunting course
Sure.
on the weekend. Right. Obviously, years later, I regret that. But, you know, I was one of those where I'm like, I wasn't saying ban all guns, but I was just like, I don't like. I've
You don't
shot
see
a
the need of
pistol.
it.
Yeah, I was like, I don't see the need of it. But now, you know, that I've, you know, listened to the podcast, I've been on the podcast, and I understand the concept of like all these competitions and this and that. And I'm
Well,
like,
and let's be
even
real.
the stress relief and the aromatherapy of going to shoot anything.
Well,
right?
there's that element. Like it's just like going to, you know, punch a punching bag at a gym. You don't need to do that. The odds of you getting in a street fight is actually very slim, and needing to punch
Mhm.
somebody, very slim.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But it is a good release, and it's a controlled environment where you're taught how to do
Mhm.
it. But I think it's kind of like that situation, and we all encountered, well, not we all, sorry, I'm going to speak for myself here. I for sure encountered it last year, September. Same idea, where you're just told that you can't do something that you should be able to do. And
Yeah.
that is extremely, I felt very, very nervous about it because, and we're, you know, there's some comments here in the chats about this, you know, what's next, right? Because it's not
Yeah.
just one thing, and it's
Yeah.
not just another thing. And it seems like stuff is progressing so fast. And if anybody pays a hot second of attention to history and even recent history, just in terms of the general behaviors of the average Joe, and some of the things, like, we all went to effort and money to go and get licensed and to be certified, and we're
Yeah.
upstanding citizens to maintain those certifications. So it's work. It's not easy, right?
Yeah.
And then to have somebody come and, like, you were just talking about it, Pierre, like, you've got 2 certifications and wishing you had a third one, and that's pretty average, where we know some folks that have a lot more invested, a lot more skin in the game that way.
I
Right.
I have a whole wall of certificates.
But now,
But-
like, so what's this gonna do to the people that so the people that do these non-restricted, like the one stop, or I think it's called one stop or whatever, so it's the non-restricted and the hunting course on a weekend, right?
Yeah.
Or the full course, like,
I
what's
think the
that doing to-
restricted is gonna, like, the restricted is gonna
Yeah.
get shut down.
It's gonna
mean, like-
it's gonna vanish.
It's gonna
Yeah,
vanish.
but
But I
but
remember
even then-
Andrew saying, sorry, go ahead. I keep on interrupting. Go, Pierre.
no, but even then, right? Like, so
Yeah.
me and Mel said, I was like, man, I really want to pick up hunting a few years ago, and she was
Sure.
like, I'm down. So we took the non-restricted hunting course. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday course, right? The gun course, the hunting course. We did it. We both passed, blah, blah, blah. That's our thing. We like to go hunting in the spring and in the fall together, just us,
Yeah.
whether it be with people or whatever. But I'm like, it's something me and her do, which is awesome. But, so those people do the hunting course, they do restricted, non-restricted, and everything. But I'm like, so now it's pretty much pointless to get a restricted. Like, what are you going to buy if you have a restricted license, or if you're looking at
Nothing.
doing this
Mhm.
course?
There's nothing.
Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
you can buy. And even if someone is finally into, they finally took someone up on the, like, let's go for a day hunt and go bird hunting, small game hunting, or like, you know what, I'm off for 2 days and you're taking your week off hunting, like, can I come with you? And it's like, I told them, okay, you got to be quiet, you can't make any noise, this, that, and let's go sit in a blind, or the stock theory of hunting. And the guy's like, you know what, this is actually a lot funner than I thought it would be.
Sure.
Is it even worth that guy going to do his
Well, so-
non-restricted course at this point?
The problem is that I think it's there. Okay. So those are all really good questions, because I think where folks maybe don't, and maybe folks do realize this, but maybe the mass public are kind of have their heads in the sand a little too much, because they don't realize that it's not just about, okay, so first of all, it was handguns are restricted. Okay. You could no longer purchase, trade, sell, anything like that. And now we know that you can't, like, the course is just going to disappear, because
Yeah,
if you
but
can't
right,
do
there was
anything.
restricted, then there was the
Absolutely.
transfers, then there was the ATTs, right? Like,
Absolutely. But
you
so
have
then
you're restricted, I have a restricted, I want to sell you a handgun because I don't want it anymore and you want it.
you can't
We
do
can't
that.
do that
Exactly.
without government saying it's okay.
So
then
we
we got to
couldn't
the
do
point where
that
we are now.
before without the government saying it's okay, but now it's like totally not allowed. And the
Yeah.
part that I think a lot of folks, this is the part that bothers me, because I'm like, yeah, like,
Government.
firearms are great to fire off. It's fun, it's cathartic, it's, a controlled environment, it's all these good things, it's a community. But the part that is challenging to me is, why are people not realizing this? These are the steps that lead up to greater sanctions. These are the steps that lead up to greater, constrictions in everything from what you own and who you engage with, and where you travel to. We've seen
But-
all of that stuff occur already just in the last 12 30 12 to 30 months, right? Like, we've seen that be
Yeah.
extremely aggressive. And this is the part that kind of blows my mind. If folks are shocked about C21, where have you been for the last 3 years? The last 7 years? I don't care. Like, if folks are shocked by this, I would
Yeah.
encourage y'all to just pick up a history book. This is not the
Yeah.
first time that this has happened.
Right. But
And it never ends well. It does
Yeah.
not end well. And it's less to do with the guns and more to do with the control of the people. And that's
Absolutely.
where it becomes
Yeah.
extremely challenging to me and extremely alarming that so many folks do not understand that, like stop thinking about it being like, oh, well, I want to have weapons of mass destruction. Nobody really wants weapons of mass destruction. I mean, they're
Well,
super cool seeming,
that's
but like
typ-
you're not really going to go out and do anything with them. That's not why you have them, whatever.
doesn't mean I don't want one. Just because I don't want
Right.
to blow up a whole other country doesn't mean I don't want to
Sure.
own one.
Sure, exactly. I mean, but that's the point though, right? Like people aren't, going out and buying these things to be destructive. They're buying these things because it's a controlled sport, it's an activity. But now I'm just like fired up and more resistant because somebody's saying, we're going to control you using this measure. And that's the part. Yeah.
I mean, I have advertised that I have my firearms license, but about a year and a half ago, we had a tragic boating accident.
Yeah.
So, and then all these laws changed and, inflation.
Wasn't
hasn't been
I
able
on
to
that
purchase
boat
a
with
new
you when
one.
that happened?
I think we all were.
I
It was a
think I
big
was on that
charter
boat with
like,
you.
cruise ship thing. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know what? I kind of, it was so traumatizing that I kind of blocked out who was
I
there.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very tragic day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been hunting with a borrowed gun since then.
You know what? I
Yeah.
can't even bring myself to hunt.
It's just
I'll
so
shoot
so worked
stuff,
out.
don't get me wrong. But
Yeah.
right, but
Yeah,
I mean,
it's-
so now we're in this giant debate, right? So now they've banned a bunch of the guns and the government, or not even the government, right? The society. Like Liz was just saying, right? Like anybody who's shocked and everybody that's like rah, 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 right? Like, yeah, no, they haven't listened or read or understood history where I'm like,
Yeah.
it starts, if we go down this dark path, it starts here. I'm not
Mhm.
saying we're 100% heading down that path where we're
Well-
going to go like full communism and
Well, we're heading down that path,
Gulag,
Pierre. It's whether or not folks see it and like
Like-
do something about it now.
Well,
You know what I mean? Like
we're-
it's whether or
also
not it's able to
assuming-
stop this rolling cycle. Like
but just because the government is banning guns doesn't mean they're going to make gulags, right? Like
No, but I mean,
we're
they already
following the
have-
pattern.
so Canada like has a bit of a shady history that a lot of people don't realize. Like we had, internment camps in World War II as well. We also
Yeah.
have COVID camps already built. So, you're going to have to
Well, and
excuse me
don't-
if I don't trust the government to be.
Don't forget
I'm
all
not-
those
I'm
schools
not
that we sent all
implying-
the native kids to.
Yeah.
I'm not implying we should trust
No.
government,
I know you're not, but
right?
I
Like,
guess
that
I
is-
guess I'm just saying that like all of these things are in place already. So
Yeah.
if we're wondering how far down that path we're going towards something that cannot be turned around, we're pretty
Oh, yeah.
far down that path already. And
Yes.
the part that makes it like sketchy is that most people are not recognizing that those
No.
are all the signs of what has occurred in the past. Can
But
it be
there's
stopped?
just-
Of course it can be stopped. But
But-
people have to like figure that shit out and turn it
Yeah.
around yesterday.
But we also don't want to talk about, the history of like, hey, look, something really bad in history happened.
Yeah.
This was the outcome, and this is how it came to it, right? Like, find me a school that is willing to talk to, students, and I'll even say high school students, like 11th, 12th grade, right, where they sort of have a brain. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
talking my daughter that's 10.
Yeah,
But,
sure,
like,
sure.
If the government wants to ban guns, they're communists, right? But hey, look, so this is what it came to, right? Millions of people died, concentration camps,
Sure.
gulags, whatever you want to call it, right? Okay, so let's rewind, let's say everything started happening, that
Like
that
what
ball
is this
started rolling 10
geopolitical
years.
stuff
Yeah,
that happened
let's
to
say
bring
that
it to
started
that? Yeah.
10 years before what we're talking about. Let's go back 15, right? What was the
Yeah.
country like? And
Yeah.
how did that evolution slowly come to it? You know, is there
Well, let me
any
tell you
school?
something, Pierre. You do any research on the beginning of the Socialist Party in Germany, you know, and
It wasn't
Hitler's
as bad as
rise.
Nazis made it. Right? It wasn't as bad as
Well,
what Hitler made it to be.
so
World War II.
actually, that's because after World War One, the country was pretty
Yeah.
much emotionally and financially bankrupt. So then having somebody come in with all these delightful ideas of, growth and
Yeah.
excellence and a very enigmatic personality was, a bit of a
And
rallying
a cool
effect.
stash. And
Yeah.
a cool
It
stash.
was a rallying effect, but some of the steps and the things that he's done was very parallel to what we're actually experiencing now. And that's the part, so I did some reading on a pastor during that time. So he talked about how, Nazi Germany kind of came through in terms of how it took over the church, and that was how it got to a lot of people, right? And that's not the only way that it got to people, but there was a lot of German pastors that also ended up dying in prison because of the way that they used spiritual manipulation and social manipulation and cut out the moral fibers of a country.
And I'm gonna maybe go out on a limb here and say something a little controversial.
And
I'm
I'm
certainly
olive branch.
What's that,
not
Pierre?
going to condone anything that they did.
No.
They did a lot of horrible
Sure.
horrible things, but both sides were playing a propaganda game.
Yep.
So there is a lot of things that if you go back and find the right things, we said that they did these horrible things, not to say that they didn't do some of them, but a lot of the myths and legends surrounding it were things that we told our own people to dehumanize them.
Yeah.
So that we had
100%.
no problem going out and shooting at other humans.
Mm-hmm.
And and then time passes and we forget this, and then everyone just believes the horrible things that have been said, and we all just kind of go along with it. So again, not to say that I condone anything that they did do and that they didn't do horrible things, but
no, and I mean,
we do need to take a lot of historical things in context, because history is written by the people that won.
So, well, and this is the thing though, is that, so for me, I'm not as much interested in the historical outcome. Like there's a lot of tragedies that have happened in history. That's not necessarily, but I do believe that we're creatures of habit. And I think that we kind of revert back to our same systems of, hierarchies and tribalism and, I guess whether it's ethnocentrism or whether it's just narcissism on a grander level, whatever, ego, all those things, we have tendencies there. And I think that we tend to gravitate towards them. And unless you're aware enough, you kind of get trapped in that cycle and you continue going down that path, and it just becomes cyclical because what happens is a big catastrophe then happens and kind of resets. Right. Yeah. And you see that happening over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And we kind of get way more stupid as the future goes. And you can kind of tell because those catastrophe things and those rise of those egotistical powers is in shorter spans. Right. Yeah. So it's happening more frequently. Doomed
to repeat history because we don't ever learn from history.
Absolutely. And it's getting worse, shorter time spans.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that is the issue because, and again, I don't want to necessarily compare any of the current situation with things like the Holocaust, because you're right. We know that there was something catastrophic that happened and some really bad things that occurred, but we also, if we weren't there, so we have to say, okay, well, the outcome could be different, but the steps leading up to the catastrophic event are eerily similar.
There are definitely parallels to that and to various other events throughout history where there was
Well, it leads up, you
something.
know that it leads up to a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just may not know what that catastrophe is, but you know it's going there.
Yeah.
So,
And I
So,
can tell you one thing that helps you avoid it:
what?
having a well-armed populace.
It's true. It's true.
Because that usually kind of is one of the signs that something like this is coming, is that the people in charge tell you that you don't need to worry about protecting yourself,
Yeah.
and that they will do that for you.
Well, and it's so this is a plug as well for the, Canadian Patriot podcast, like Rucking Challenge, because we as a society, and I'm speaking, anybody that has met me knows that I'm like probably the the least in shape of the crew here. We've allowed
I
ourselves.
don't know. I smoke and drink a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, that seems to be your go-go juice. It seems to work for you.
For my rambles, not so much for fucking doing exercise.
Well, that's fair. But but the point is that we've kind of been brought into this sphere of like a safety network where we've all gotten comfortable and cozy and lazy and fat and all of these things that make us extremely compliant and reliant on the government, right? And it's a great way to make people just follow along, right?
It's almost like when we came up with the Patriot Challenge, there was a method to the madness.
Yeah.
In trying to get people to better themselves in as many different ways as possible. And we get that it's hard and all of that. But like, as Andrew often says, always be improving your fighting position. And that doesn't always necessarily mean working on your physical health, although
I mean,
being better in shape helps literally everything. It's also your mental well-being,
learning
I think for clarification on that though, I didn't really know until I asked, like, what do you mean by fighting position? But it's a good statement, like, hey, are you just more prepared to take on the day in a better position?
And some people are, everyone has a limitation of some sort, but like some people are not geared for actual fighting. Other people are, but that doesn't mean that people are useless altogether. Well, some people are, but I call those people politicians. But as long as you're getting a little bit better in some way and making your life better, stronger, faster, smart, all something that's moved is progress in the positive movement forward type thing. Like, do that, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? If you know someone that's just really stuck up, like even them just saying, hey, I want to have a conversation to understand how your mind works compared to mine, right? Like we all know people that think completely different from us, right? I work with them. I mean, I don't interact with them because I hate people, but like I work with people and like we'll have a difference of opinion, whether it be on religious factors, well, why do you want a gun? Well, why do you not want a gun? Right. And we will have those conversations where it's like a 2-hour conversation. And, I understand his point of view. He understands my point of view, but neither one of our point of views have changed. From like, even just have, people need to put their big boy pants on or their big girl underwear on. And we need to start having more conversations where I'm just like, okay, let's have a conversation, right? Don't be insultive, don't be rude, but you stand your ground. I'm going to stand my ground. Let's have a conversation.
People are assholes and really struggle to be humble enough to listen to other people's views without being offended.
So that doesn't happen nowadays, which is
but that's what I mean. Like, people are assholes. Like, you got to sit there and you got to listen to somebody without being offended that they don't agree with you. And then maybe don't try and change their opinion, because it's quite shocking. The more that you listen to people, the more you might actually change your own perspective and your own worldview, because it's going to grow just by, a healthy dialogue with somebody.
Yeah. And if you're so dead set in your opinion,
what
are you so scared of talking to somebody else for?
Well, in the echo chamber, like, even, sometimes I have to be careful as well, because, I'm petty. I am stubborn. I am feisty. I am all the
I-
things.
I
None
will
So
of
you're
them.
so you're a panelist on CPP.
Right.
I will win a penny
Yeah.
competition against anybody.
Well,
Guaranteed.
but that's the thing though, is that sometimes I have to remind myself
Yeah.
not to put myself in an echo chamber. It's really
Yeah.
easy to come into a setting where, we're 95% all in agreement on
Yeah.
a lot of things.
Yeah. Although
Well, go out into the world and have conversations with people that
But-
don't align with you, and then
But
see where your stance is at and see how you hold up against that kind of pressure.
Right, but I'm more interested in having conversations with that 5%.
I know you are, but here's the gig.
No.
You're, I guess, what is it? What is the word that, enhancing your fighting position? What was
Yeah.
the phrase?
better
Sure.
your fighting
No, but-
position.
Better your
yeah,
fighting position.
Improve
But it's
it,
not
whatever.
Improve
yeah.
it. Yeah,
But it's
you're
not even
doing that,
that.
but you're doing that just by having those conversations with your coworker. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be anything fancy,
Yeah.
but you
Oh.
having those conversations with your coworker really does make you more like
Yeah.
mentally prepared for what it is that you believe to be the correct
Yeah.
trajectory of your
it's-
life and your values, right?
It's
It
super important. I
forces
mean,
you. Yeah, it
I-
forces you to be stabilized in that.
sometimes my girlfriend and my father, when we have like family dinners, dislike it because these are the kinds of conversations that like my mother and I have, because our opinions on a lot of things are vastly different, and we have fairly intense discussions that sound like we're arguing,
Sure.
but we're not.
Yeah.
Like, not in
Yeah.
a aggressive combative way. I mean, there's definitely some arguing going on, but it
Yeah,
is
but
like it's
you
the
stand
mental
your-
exercise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way
And-
to put it. The mental exercise.
We both enjoy it because if nothing else, it just further reinforces our opinion. But like, neither of us are scared to have the intellectual discourse, because
Mhm.
like, if I truly believe in my opinion, I'm going to speak up about it. I'm going to
Yeah.
talk about it, and I'm not scared to do that because I have the conviction to do so.
Yeah.
If I kind of wishy-washy on it, then maybe I won't have a conversation, but I'll still be willing to do that and listen, because maybe I'll learn something I didn't know. And I usually do learn something I didn't know. It doesn't necessarily change my opinion.
No, absolutely not.
It might
But-
not be useful information that you did.
Yeah.
So the way that I kind of see it is that any conversation, one of two things can happen. You're either going to learn how to better articulate your perspective, or you're going to learn something new and allow it to shape your perspective.
Yeah.
Maybe both happen, but either way, I think that a lot could be accomplished, if people start talking like that, and even, to kind of bring it full circle, the whole gun stuff, that's a symptom of a bigger situation, right?
Yeah.
This is a symptom of a bigger situation. And I think if folks started having those uncomfortable conversations, I think, and pairing up, because I would say that the mass populace, one of the reasons why these gun bans have become so easily passed through is folks are sick of, what's that?
Misinformation.
Well, I think folks are really sick of dealing with the government in general, so they just kind of tune out, right?
Yeah.
The other thing too is that, that misinformation piece, everybody assumes that when somebody goes and shoots up or robs something or is trafficking things, they're doing it with legal guns. Folks don't realize that there's two methods there. There's two processes there. And, I've started to just have more conversations about stuff like this, and I'll bring up the topic with folks that have no clue, because they're like, oh, wait, you have to have there's like police checks being done on you daily. I was like, yeah.
So I'll even bring up a funnier story than that. So right when the whole COVID started in 2020, right? Like February-ish.
It did, yeah.
Right. I was looking, what it was like a big scare in the Canuck Nation, right? I was looking for some powder. I was doing some testing, reloads, figuring what I want. I went to Cabela's because I'm like, I can just buy a pound real quick right there. Test out some loads for me and Mel's hunting rifles, you know, whatever. We had 2 different loads we were doing, whatever. But it was the beginning of the COVID, so like take a number and like stand for 20 minutes, right?
Sure.
And there's a guy there, he's got like 4 cases of shotgun shells in his cart. And he's looking at buying some sort of shotgun, right? And it's like that cool zombie one that's got like the handle over the barrel that you can pump the shotgun, right?
Yeah.
So the guy's all ecstatic. He gives his firearms license or whatever. And then they're trying to scan through like the 6 boxes of ammo he's like, yeah, those are 3-inch shells, and the gun you're buying is 2 3/4. And the guy literally said, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." And I'm like, how did you get your firearms license? Well, I mean, I understand how you got your firearms license, but I was like, just that knowledge, right? Like the guy's just like, oh, this is 12 gauge, throw in the cart, and I'm gonna go here, right? So like, I love having those debates where I'm just like, I'm all up for you to tell me why I should own a gun, and I want to have a conversation about why I enjoy guns and the hoops I have to jump through to be able to enjoy what I like.
Yeah.
Those are the conversations I absolutely love.
Yeah. No, and I think it's good. So
And-
there you go. You're doing your whole improving your fighting stance by developing
I
your
mean,
mental fortitude.
I wasn't at Cabela's drunk, but because I had to drive home from there. But
That's probably a good thing, Pierre.
Well,
yeah, I would spend so much money if I was drunk in Cabela's, for sure.
Probably a good thing. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Well, we've pretty much
Beating
went
a dead
from
horse.
E21 to,
it's all related. It's all
Yeah.
related.
philosophy.
I
And
gotta-
I love it. I love it. But
I'm gonna I was purposely ignoring some of Chris's comments because he told me to ignore them, because that way I can show my contempt for
Contempt,
the
yeah.
listeners. But I am going to go back to something that was mentioned about private property rights.
What, we have rights?
No, we don't.
Okay.
We specifically don't have private property rights in this country. There was a bill introduced by Sean Bevins, the former president of the NFA, back when it was at least somewhat useful. They got rid of him. Sheldon was installed as the dictator for life, although it appears someone mentioned earlier that he's no longer the dictator for life. So
Oh,
curious what
wow.
happened there.
like, is it the same
Um,
Sheldon from Big Bang Theory though?
that would be amazing.
No,
He's
Oh.
at least Texan.
nerdier, if you will, or at least looking, not a very nice gentleman. Yeah, we don't have private property rights, but we did try to do it a while ago. There was a petition put before the government, and shockingly, they said no. It was not done as a gun thing, but purely as a private property rights to enshrine those as a thing. And unfortunately, even if that did likely go through, it probably still wouldn't apply to guns, because we do not have the right to own guns in this country. We have the privilege to own guns in this country, which can be revoked at any moment in time, especially
Ugh.
with the red flag laws that they plan to introduce that already actually exist in this country anyways. That, yeah, the new ones will just cause problems. But yes.
The new president of the National Firearms Association is a Mr. Rick Egerkich.
Yes, I know that gentleman.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess one of the good things that came out of this, hopefully, is that it has finally started to unite gun owners, maybe, hopefully a little bit,
Mm,
in that the those that were in the, well, they're never coming for my insert gun with wood stock and
sure. Yeah.
No.
antique whatever on it.
No.
Maybe they ain't coming for it yet, but they're probably coming for some of your other hunting guns. So
Yep.
hopefully it has energized those folks, because I remember when the OIC dropped and all of a sudden the hunters were all up in arms about their 12 gauge shotguns that might be prohibited, but then Bill Blair tweeted, because that's how we make laws in this country, that they were okay.
Yeah, well.
And then they all just kind of shut up and went away.
Yeah. There's like a week where it was like finally we're
Hopefully-
united.
Hopefully it has reignited those people, and
Well-
that they start being vocal and doing all of the things to not just save their, gun, but all of the guns.
Well,
Yeah.
even the OFAH like has gotten a lot more on board. I've gotten a lot more emails just in the last month about a lot of this stuff, which I'm surprised. So, you're right. There's a unification that's occurring. And I do think that the government is isolating a very powerful group of people, whether we're small or not. We're mighty, that's for sure. So,
And if we all united
yeah.
and decided to vote as a block, we would not be small.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a lot of folks, though, again, it goes back to that lack of trust and confidence in the government. So I think folks have kind of given up a little bit. And, we see a lot of folks also focus on what's going on down in the States. And that's a bit of a distracting effect because we're so close to our neighbors in the South that if it happens to them, it's going to happen to us and vice versa. We really feel that. So we get a little distracted, and then I think we neglect our own politics. And it's pretty easy to do that, though, because the shenanigans that are going on in the States, we see direct implications. Like we were talking about how, Biden pulled the pipeline, which has impacted, Alberta's ability to, transfer oil. And he did that his first day in office. We see, the disaster of the ArriveCan app. Its American counterpart is still in effect in the US. We see a lot of those things and we get distracted by it, and we forget that we're still fighting in our own country for certain privileges of,
right?
Just like freedoms of living, and when I talk about things like, freedoms and stuff like that, I'm not referring to, basic human needs that some third world countries really lack in. We are a first world country, and we got there by doing certain things. I'm fighting to maintain that. I'm actively seeking to maintain that. So that's kind of where I draw that difference. So
what I'm fighting for, I will not say live.
Well,
on
and
the
so
interwebs.
the sad thing is that I was downtown on Tuesday evening for a dinner with my pistol club, the day that all this nonsense came out, and we're sitting there.
Was it your last supper?
It appears that way. Although I did have another one with my pistol club again on the Thursday, because apparently our pistol club has a eating dinner problem. But
apparently
on the Tuesday night, we were there with one of the older gentlemen in the club, and he was remembering a time in the 60s when he was allowed to go to his farm with his Tommy gun.
Yeah.
Oh,
And just blast away on his own private property or on Crown land.
Yeah.
With a full auto Tommy gun. And that was totally okay and legal. And he owned it legally. And he was using it legally. And nobody got hurt. And crime was actually lower back then when he was allowed to own a machine gun.
Yep.
A submachine gun, if you will.
yeah, because they're 44, right?
45.
Remember? 45. Okay.
They're nice and small as opposed to
Yeah.
like a Modus. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe we
I know.
should take a few steps backwards.
I think so.
Yeah, I think we should go back to where everyone should own a Tommy gun. I'm down.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as we all have yellow suits and we drive the Dick Tracy cars.
Suits.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
If that's what I have to do to own a Tommy gun legally, I guess I'll do it.
I will walk
Flapper
around
girls.
I'll
Yeah.
walk around butt naked
Yeah.
day in, day out.
Well, I mean, no
Own a
one would be
Tommy
able
gun.
to stop you. You'd have a Tommy gun.
It's true.
I guess we've probably beat this dead horse a lot, but we'll close
Absolutely.
it there, I guess. So, Liz, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, I do have my Instagram account for both my gym and my person. Also on Facebook. I'm going to leave it up to the listeners to try and figure out what those are, what those Instagram and Facebook handles are. So that's your challenge of the week.
Yeah. Do your sleuthing.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Be your snobby person and go back to a few, like last week's episode.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
giving
Oh.
tips. Giving
Yeah.
tips.
Yeah.
I always give the tip.
Okay.
Well,
You went
Pierre,
there.
where can people contact your better half to buy shirts?
Off the wall customizing at Gmail. Yeah, you'll be dealing with her way before you deal with me. I'll do the math stuff. She'll communicate the math. The odd time, mostly recently, I've also been on the other CPP on Sunday nights, the Prepper podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a fun adventure. And if you're really good, you can find me on Instagrams. She'll have to do a lot more digging than the last episode to figure that out.
There you go.
You can also find me on the Instagrams, Urbex GTA. And if you've listened to the show this long, you definitely deserve a discount for Ragnarok Tactical. Use the code Patriot at checkout for a discount. Get those Yule gifts for people to buy firearms related accessories while you're still legally allowed to use them. Also, don't forget about the Amazon affiliate link. Use that. It helps put a couple of bucks in the show's pocket to help keep this entertainment rolling for you. It doesn't cost you any extra, though. It actually takes a little bit away from Amazon, which, that's a good thing.
It's not bad. Are you guys doing book club next week then?
Yes, we will be doing book club next week, which is what's his name? Hillier?
Soldier
Yes,
First.
Soldier
First
by Rick Hillier. We will be doing that book club next week. It was a little bit more important that we talked about this, so we're switching things around once again. Don't worry, book club has always been the first Monday of the month, not the last Monday of the month. I swear. Also, apologies to Rod. Rod's a little bit busy today. He was actually in Ottawa doing some stuff, so he couldn't make it. He assures us that he is finishing up his copy of the book and will be on next week. And a reminder that you are a small fringe minority with unacceptable